Hello. So, welcome to a very exciting episode of the Career Conversation series. Primarily because the guest today, Mr. S.V Nathan, is a celebrity on LinkedIn and he's a LinkedIn Power Profile 2018. He's the head HR for Deloitte India and a partner there. So, welcome to the show, sir. And it's been a real pleasure that you've consented to be part of our series.
Hi Anurag, thank you so much. Pleasure speaking with you and happy to be on the show.
Sure, sir. So, sir, basically, this is a series that we record and we disseminate on this channel for basically people from the commerce background, the youngsters who are looking at career choices, the career trajectories of successful people. So, we wanted to understand how you work through this year. So, before we plunge into your professional part, can you please tell us about your formative years, your schooling, your college, the values that you learned from your parents, etc.?
Okay, so first of all, schooling. One of the most exciting parts of my life is my schooling. I was born into a very modest family, and I had my primary education in Calcutta. And from Calcutta,
So
we
which
ran
school?
away from. Yeah,
So which school in
I
Calcutta?
I studied in a school called Auxilium Convent, and this is near Dum Dum.
Yeah, Dum Dum, yeah.
And we all ran away from that place because of the Naxalbari movement, and they were after people who were not really sons of the soil, as it were. Otherwise, I'd been very happy continuing in Calcutta. It's still a fantastic place. I love the place. I moved from Calcutta to Madras and did my really the rest of my primary education from Madras. Middle school was from Nagpur, middle and high school. Middle school was Madras, high school was Nagpur. And so it's a strange thing, you did primary in one place, you did middle in another city, high school intermediate was Nagpur. And so it was learning new languages, meeting new people. But at the core of all of this was something that I will never forget. Um, Years ago, I remember that there was this family. This family was modest of means, and they used to have just but one room, and everything around them was just common, including common bathrooms, common everything. And so there was an old lady, a grandmother, who used to feed all her grandchildren, telling them stories on the sidewalk. So on the platform, she used to sit down, which was their living room in some sense. I was very interested because the lady gave us great stories. And it so happened that one day I joined the group and she was speaking about something very exciting. And there was and she used to take some curd rice and give it to each one of the people around. One day a car went by. When a car went by, one of the people listening to her, that person got distracted and that person turned around. And when that happened, the old lady got very upset. She had just but one leg, and she got upset, and somehow, she slapped the person and said, "What's it? I'm telling you a story, and why is it?" And the boy said, "I'm sorry, grandma. I got distracted by the car." "What of it?" He said, "Can I ever sit in a car?" You're looking at somebody on the pavement because all they know is that they go to a corporation school, they sit on the ground, they have no vision for themselves. Here was a grandmother telling them stories and a boy getting distracted by a car. She said, if it is a car, then you must own the car, you must sit in the front. And if you have to sit in the cars, if you're sitting behind, that must be your driver, that must be your car. I never forgot that story because I was listening to that story. I will always remember that story because every time I sit in a car, I'm reminded of this old lady. The person who got distracted is speaking to you, and the lady who gave out those wonderful stories was my very own grandmother. And uh, from her, all that we learned was you got to work exceedingly hard, and then you got to work right. You got to be clear what you want, and I just went from strength to strength. Today, if I ever look back in life, the one thing that I'll always be grateful to is my grandmother, because she gave us the notion of how it is to have to work hard and say, I'm going to do something in my life. If I had to run, which is what I did, participating in all kinds of athletic competitions when I was in school and in college, my single minded purpose was that I should do exceedingly well. And in middle and long distance running, I always was at the top. And even about running, I can tell you something. I wanted to run because I felt that my father was a runner, I must be a runner too. I went to the playground and I asked my coach, and I said, "Hey, coach, tell me if I am a good runner." So he said, "Okay, do this 100-meter dash." And I did the 100-meter dash. He looked at me and he says, "You are no good as a runner." And then he shooed me away. I came home. And when I met my mother, and I was weeping, and she said, "What happened to you?" So I said, "Mama, they're not going to select me because I'm not a good runner." So my mother said, "You asked the wrong question." So she says, "What do I say?" Go back to the coach, ask him the simple question: in running, what am I really good at? Coach, can you tell me that? So I went back the next day, same playground, went to the coach and said, "What do you think I'm good at?" So this time the coach said, "Now start running around and let me tell you what you're good at." After about 6 or 7 rounds of a 400-meter track, he looked at me and he says, "Come here, boy. You are good at middle and long distance running, and I will coach you." So very, very simple things, Anurag. Very early in your life, you have to know what you are good at, and that is was very inspiring for me, because a coach just the day before told me I was useless. The next day, you ask the right question, and the coach tells me this is what you could be good at. I represented my college as the college athletic captain. That to me was fantastic. I wanted to be an engineer, and this was in Nagpur. I had admissions to engineering colleges in Nagpur, VRC then, which is NIT now. And then, but my father could not afford me to stay in a place like Nagpur. We had transferred to Madras. I came to Madras. In Madras, what happened was very, very simply this: I could not get admissions to engineering colleges. They were all closed for admissions. Then I went to every college saying, "Give me some admission to some course." Then I came across a college called Vivekananda College, and they said, "Will you take up mathematics?" Did I like mathematics? The answer is no. I didn't like mathematics. And did I have to take it? Yes. I had no choice. So did I do well in mathematics? I did exceedingly well. I was the best outgoing student of Vivekananda College. My learning from that was, if you don't get what you like what you get, and do a good job of that. Of course, post that, I went into XLRI, and then again, I was a topper from XLRI, and so on. I moved on. But that's a long answer to a short question about your schooling and what I learned from that.
Yes, sir. Fantastic. I mean, that grandmother story of yours is something which really struck the chord. You would need to
Thank
get
you.
into the car and have a driver, not just yearn for it and get distracted.
Yes.
So, since you undergraduated from mathematics, then what prompted your interest in HR at XLRI? Was it like serendipity? Did it just happen? So, why I'm asking this is because often it is the percentile in ZAT or CAT which often determines our choice between a finance and a marketing and an HR. It's just like, okay, you are getting HR at XLRI and finance at this college. XLRI is better, so let's take HR there. So was it something like that, or you're clear ki, yes, HR is what my calling is?
So, quick answer. One is, I was academically very good because of my grandmother. She said, if you're going to do something, do it exceedingly well, or don't do it at all. And so I had all the requisite marks. Um, my uncle, my father's younger brother, was a trade union leader, and I had a choice of taking up business management or getting into HR, because then that I would learn a lot more about what is industrial relations, what it is with factories and unions and so on. It is that curiosity that got me into human resources. And of course, my uncle was mad at me because he says, "No, you're sitting on the other side of the table." But that's what I did. Yes.
All right. So then you went to the 2 years at XLRI, and in the 80s was MBA as much in vogue as it is today, the passport to success. And how was campus life in Jamshedpur then?
Oh, by the way, whether this is today or whether this was in the 80s, it's no different. I mean, only the best of the best could even secure admissions. And it was very, very clear that, well, in those days, it was not really called a passport of some sort, but it did get you to some of the best companies that one can work for. And that is what got me to really applying myself at XLRI. We had great companies that came in for campus. And so I believe whether it was then or whether it is now, there was always a huge calling for people in the field of MBA. I majored in human resources, but I could have majored in marketing and so on. My very first, by the way, my very first job on campus when I got it was not even in human resources. They said, "Why didn't you come up in marketing?" And that was from a leading consumer brand of India. And I could have gone into that company, but I didn't. I said, my calling is human resources, and I stuck to it.
So now in terms of your career, that entire journey, so currently since long, like you are in Deloitte, and Deloitte is something which is special because in 2005-7 I did my articleship from Deloitte. My wife Sonia, she started her career with Deloitte USI. My brother-in-law Hemant, he works in Deloitte Digital. So between Deloitte now and maybe Deloitte itself has changed over the years, and then ICI and Sterling Holidays, Microland, Planetasia, Reliance Infocomm. How have you seen the HR profession evolve over the years in terms of stakeholder expectations, workflow expectations? So now, for example, COVID has changed it all the more completely. So how has that entire transition been? It's been a long 37 years that you spent in this field now.
So my very first job was with a company called ICI, Imperial Chemicals Industries, an outstanding organization. I served that organization for 12 years. I would never have retired. I would have never gone from to any other company. I would have retired from this company because I just think that it was the best of the best organizations then. The values that it stood for, what it taught me in my life, incredible. The best of leadership stories that I have are always centered around my early days in ICI. The company demerged into ICI and Zeneca went into AstraZeneca and so on. And I therefore left the organization. Otherwise, I would have continued to stay in ICI. In ICI, I was in the manufacturing part of the firm. ICI is a manufacturing organization. So I was into explosives, I was into part of what is pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals. So I've been in these kinds of businesses, and I have a fairly good idea about what is industrial relations, having dealt with the unions, having understood what it is at the grassroots, what people like and want, and what really drives people. So when you move into a manufacturing organization, you understand the true value of what each person brings to the table. You understand the value of time, you understand the value of a process, you understand the value of being disciplined, and more than anything, you understand the value of interdependencies. If you're working in an explosives plant, you will know what it is to understand the value of hand on and hand off. You make a mistake about that, it could endanger the life of many around you, including your own. So you learn quite a lot, and you understand what it is when dealing with workmen. By the way, workmen are no different from you or me. It just happens that they are skilled in a different way and we are skilled in a different way. That's all. Ultimately, if you look at it, the food that you eat is no different from the food that they would eat.
Absolutely.
Everything is about the same. The air that we breathe is no different from what they breathe, or the water that we drink, and so on and so forth. So it just teaches you to be normal. So if you're working in a manufacturing organization, what it taught me was to be normal. And industrial relations is more about understanding the wants and desires of people. That, by the way, has not changed. The laws in India will undergo some minor changes, but you understand that labor cannot be exploited, because the moment you start to look at exploiting labor, then know that one day you will get exploited by the people who are your superiors. And all of us, in some way, we labor at something or the other. That is manufacturing. From manufacturing, I moved into service. Service is a completely different gamut of what human resources is about. I moved from an organization which employed only chartered accountants, people who are MBAs from the top business schools, and three engineers from only the IITs. They never got people from anywhere else. So you're really looking at the creme de la creme walking into an organization. I moved into an organization where we got very normal people. When I say normal people, I'm talking about people who were people who had just done their undergrads, BScs, BComs, people who may not even have completed all of this. We got them in sterling holiday, and we got ordinary people in some sense to do extraordinary jobs. I understood the value of what motivation is. How do you really empower a team? How do you really, this whole business of understanding selling, and what is the notion of adding value? All of this undergoes a tremendous change when you get to truly understand all of people at the grassroots level. So in more ways than one, you're getting to understand services is about serving a customer. A customer comes first. So you learn about that in human resources. So there's a lot about that. You learn a lot about learning, training. From there, I went into another services organization. I went into IT and telecom. IT, telecom, all of this is no different, because today that human resources were more to secure the best of talent. And how do you get that talent? How do you build a brand? How do you attract people to an organization? How do you get people to liberate their potentialities in organization? That's what you learn there. And then you come into a professional services organization like Deloitte. And Deloitte in those days, we were I was part of the US firm then, and we were trying to build a brand. How do you build a brand in a place where people have not even heard about this organization?
Like a
And
startup.
then and that is very exciting. Yeah, like almost like a startup. And today, if you look at the size of Deloitte and where it is stupendous. And by the way, you focus on culture. And how do you nurture culture? How do you build the right kind of culture? So those are very exciting days. As you would have seen, I continue to stay in Deloitte because Deloitte is where the best choose to be. Deloitte is a fantastic place. And by the way, Anurag, you may think that I'm biased. The answer is yes, I am, because this is a wonderful organization to be with.
So I know because you consented for coming on this show also because me and Sonia are from Deloitte. So I know that you want.
Exactly. The only reason I said, okay, guys, I mean, this is a long day for me, and I say, okay, I'm okay to do this because the two of you are from Deloitte. Why not?
Yeah. So my question is like since a lot of viewers on our channel are in the age group of 20 to 30, early 30s, what's your view on the millennials now? I mean, the Gen X have come and gone, Gen Y have come and gone. Now it is this millennials. What is the HR strategy different in terms of recruiting them, engaging them on the work front? Their growth expectations are very different. So I look at a lot of young chartered accountants, they want to become partners straight away in 8, 10 years in a big four. I mean, how, as an HR, how do you manage this pool of individuals called the millennials? And now there are thousands probably in Deloitte.
So, 85% of our people are millennials. We
Okay.
have a millennial partner. We
Is
make sure that a millennial partner is in the executive leadership of the firm because then they'd be able to drive the millennial agenda. Now, what do millennials want? Clearly, there must be a purpose to what you're doing. That's something that we articulate. If they want to grow, then we must provide avenues for their growth. It's important for millennials to also feel that this is an organization that cares for them, and by the way, cares beyond all of this with the environment at large. Are we caring for the society that we live in? As you're well aware, Deloitte, one day on the Impact Day, it's all completely tools down, and we go and serve the community. The entire 250,000 people across the world, on one day, they will stop work, go into the community, serve the community, and come back. And by the way, just not a one day effort, it's our commitment to say this is how we will do it day upon day, and one day is just an expression that yes, the solidarity is what we demonstrate. Millennials also want to feel connected. So, do they believe that here is an organization that cares to listen to them? Do we connect with them? Do they believe that they have the freedom to work? And why not? If a partner, if there is a bright young person who can make partner in 10 years, why not? I think we should allow for that. I believe that if you do not make opportunities for our millennials, they will vote with their feet. They will leave your organization. They will look at organization which will come in and say, okay, I think this is a better place. I think this is where we should invest our time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point is also that they don't have like EMIs. Like our parents, they had like that typical middle class thing, and there were EMIs to pay. Now these millennials lives in on Airbnb, in rented flats, takes Uber, so doesn't have any financial commitment. They want value on the work front. That is the most important thing from them. Excitement. Sir, because you've dealt with a lot of chartered accountants, MBA finance, commerce graduates, how is your view towards this as a career choice in terms of this degree, the commerce degree, and then going for a CA, MBA?
So let me just back up a little bit. Um, I'll go to a story of something that happened in Sterling Holiday Resorts years ago. As you would have noticed, I talked about people who are just graduates. There are undergraduates, they had just come on board and they wanted a future for themselves. And many of them said, look, I don't think I have the luxury of time on my hand, but I still want to grow. And we put together a program called Core Management Skills Seminar. So it's called the CMS Program. And the CMS program ran for 6 months, where the best of inputs came into people in classrooms on a Saturday or even a Sunday. And people started to learn. And at the end of 6 months, they all went their own ways. 20 years later, we started to track every single person who went through that program. I'm happy to let you know that every single person part of that CMS program has done exceedingly well in their lives. Exceedingly well. Oftentimes, when I have an opportunity to go to the US, I will always call upon somebody who is part of that program because it is so, it just tells us that it doesn't matter where you start, it matters what you do with the education that you get. So whether you're a chartered accountant or whether you're a person who's just done a BSc physics to start with and decided that's all that you want to do, what do you do with that education? That matters. Do you have the right attitude towards work? People, of course, if they get to be chartered accountants, their chances of getting ahead in their lives gets to be slightly better. It's almost like you're saying that a person who's running bare feet, is that person a better runner than a person who's got the best of the Nike footwear, and who is a better runner? So it matters what the person has out here. Does that person have the hunger, the willingness to go the whole 9 yards and say, I'm going to do something? That is the big difference.
So,
So to everybody who is on this call, my only message is, um, it doesn't matter where you start and how you start. It matters what you do with this. I had a secretary who came and joined me, and I say this with pride. This gentleman who came and joined me in Deloitte was a person who was BSc physics, and for almost 20 years of his life, all he had done was shorthand typewriting. That's all that he did. When I looked at him, I found that there was something special about this gentleman. In 2 years, after the interview, I said, look, in 2 years, I'm going to fire you. And he said, what will I do? I said, you do something else, but certainly you're not going to do what you're doing right now to be employed as a secretary. Today, the same gentleman is working as a vice president human resources in a very large IT company.
oh my God,
Yes.
amazing.
And yes, and he's a person, I mean, very, you go outside, you speak to that person, and then he will be able to tell you how many lives he would have been able to transform because he could share his story. Much of this is about what is it that you believe in truly yourself.
This is just amazing. A secretary means a steno, basically someone who's
A
doing.
steno, basically, he's a steno. He's a steno who could do shorthand and typewriting. That was all that he came to me with.
My God. So, a similar question here then, that in HR, a lot of people, because at CA Job Portal, my wife deals with a lot of HRs. What if you are not from XLRI or TESS and still in HR? I mean, that is one question. Once we wrote an article on this, and that found a lot of resonance amongst people, that what if in HR you are not from XLRI or TESS but still there? So, what should one do?
Be good at what you do.
The
It
brand.
doesn't matter. I mean, I know that when we left Excel, we were a bunch of people. It's not like every person who came out of Excel or continue to come out of Excel would be terrific in what they do, because they, all of us will find our own edge. So you just have to, and all the top HR leaders in the country, not necessarily all of them would be from these portals of significant brands. Many of them would be people who have decided that they're going to do something with their own lives and do well in their lives, because they say, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be really good in this job. And once you've decided that, there is no stopping you. Talent will be recognized.
Yeah, and you
Nobody looks at what degree you
also.
come from. Yeah,
His new example is so vivid that really it's not about degrees or colleges or the brand, it's about the person, the hard work.
exactly,
A
exactly.
very contemporary question that keeps a lot of us anxious now, and that anxiety keeps coming now. Modi is going to address us at 8 p.m. again. So in the post-COVID situation, sir, like there are freshers who suddenly found that they've graduated, there are no jobs. A lot of companies have reneged on offers. Summers they are not getting. A lot of layoffs are going to happen. So in this year, how can one stay positive? And so because post recession maybe growth is going to happen, so how do we ensure that negativity does not take the better of us?
So I'll give you my personal story. At some stage in my life, I moved out of one organization because I just felt that somehow this was not the organization for me. And when I did that, by the way, everything was going good in the economy. Things were absolutely fine at that point in time. But when I left that organization, one of the things that happened to me personally was the fact that I was out of a job. I had two growing children. I had EMIs to pay, and I I had to pay for the car. And you know what it is for somebody who is struggling to make ends meet with a lot of loans. And by the way, one of the advice that I would give to a lot of people is that, hey, go easy on getting large loans. Don't do it. It is not worth it. It's not worth it. I mean, start to afford first before you can spend. And I'm saying this, all of this born out of my experience. Anyway, coming back, it took me almost 3 months to find another job. 89 days. And every day I used to wake up in the morning and I used to look at all the, in those days we didn't have all these fancy Naukri websites and LinkedIn
Job
profiles, that
portals.
job portals that you could go to, nothing. And you wake up in the morning, your children go to school, and they will ask you, Dad, what are you doing today?
Oh my
What am
god.
I doing today? I'm going to search for jobs. That's when you start to network. You
Yes.
start to, I mean, here's what I did. I wrote down on a piece of paper what I was really good at, what I was not good at. And I told myself, I will start to continue to remain positive, not because it's the right thing for me to do, because that's the only way I can survive. How will you survive? You read. What does reading do? It just at one end distracts you, at the other end, it also gets to enhance your capabilities. And just because I read and spent a lot of time on that, connected with all my friends, I can tell you, suddenly I found that there were offers that have started to come in. And like most of us, when the first one comes in, then you say, let me wait for the second and the third, and then you choose the right one. And that's what I'd say to all of us here. There is nothing called a dark day. Darkness is what you make of yourself. The moment you close your eyes, everything is dark, even when the sun shines outside. So the best thing for you to do is stay positive. The best thing for you to do is at least write a few lines, read something that energizes you. And I never forgot, I ran every day. Physical exercise releases a lot of endorphins, that's what I'm told, but I love doing it. You go meet people who are optimist people. You don't go meet people who will say the world is going to end in 3 days.
And
So
jobs that I think are going to come in some time or the other.
jobs will come. You will find a lot of jobs. By the way, I have seen what happened in the 80s, what happened in the 90s, what happens in 2000, 2016. We had a big showdown. 2008, we had one. You name it. I've been through a lot of these cycles. One thing is clear: when there is a rebound, that rebound is going to be a very good one. We just have to prepare ourselves for the tsunami. So sometimes what happens is we must continue to learn how to swim. We should not forget that. We must learn how to run. We must know how to equip ourselves. The moment you stop doing that is the day when it hits you, you're not ready for it. Jobs will come, they'll come in the droves. And by the way, this is a great time for you to offer your services, even if it is free of cost, because you're learning something.
Yeah.
See if you can do some internships in some place. They will cry and say, but I don't have a job, I can't pay you. Doesn't matter. Don't pay me. At least I'll be engaged. I'll get to learn what's happening. Do free internships. Do your networking right, because your network is your net worth. So start to get people who you have never connected with. By the way, don't send WhatsApp messages to say I hope you're safe and I'm safe, and it's a forward of a forward of a forward, right? Don't do that. Be authentic.
Yeah.
If you really need, call somebody and say, hey, I need your help. They'll help you.
And so I can share an example that every week we write some lines, and we've been doing it consistently like since 3 4 years. Sonia sends these emailers. It does create an impact if it is authentic content, not a forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. I
So
mean, so and yeah, go ahead.
no, no. So that only that forward and forward and forward, as you said, it kind of just pisses someone off.
Yeah, yeah. You got to be authentic. So anything that you write, anything that you say, has got to come within the third and the second rib and the seventh rib on your left. It's got to come from your heart.
Oh, acha. Yes, absolutely. So
It doesn't
since
come from your mouth. It's got
yeah,
to really come from your heart.
well said. So since you shoulder such massive responsibilities at Deloitte, then what's your formula for unwinding and getting rejuvenated for the next day? Like for example, today also you are on calls from 8:30 in the morning. I mean, you will be completely zapped by now. So how do you prepare yourself? What's your mantra for fitness? You said running, I heard. You said something about reading and writing as well.
Well, I do a little bit of exercises. I make sure that I eat right. So the key is, if you stuff yourself, you are getting your body to be more stressed out. So eat right, read right, and I always write something before I go to bed. And I will always write some thoughtful stuff that I will post on LinkedIn as part of my office truths. And um, I love watching movies. I do not know about you guys, but I love movies. And I
Yes.
would, it's Netflix today, Netflix and Prime and you name it, Hotstar, all this. But I have a personal collection of over 500 movies.
Oh, wonderful.
So, so what I do is I keep revisiting some of the older ones and I watch them. Today we are lucky because we have some very good equipment. You find a corner of your house where you can watch a nice cool movie. So I enjoy that. And of course when we didn't have this COVID stuff, I used to go watch movies in the theater, and I would of course write a review and
Oh,
post it on Facebook. Yes,
oh,
and I would have a reasonable readership on that. I enjoy watching movies. I just like to have a digital detox, which is I just switch off. I just don't look at all my mails, nothing, for at least an hour, hour and a half. You just log off. You'll be fine. Nothing. The world is not going to come to an end.
so as we head towards the my last two questions. One, sir, that you talked about LinkedIn, you're being very active there. So you were a LinkedIn power profile also recently. So this Office Truth series of yours, sir, I mean, that is something which is so wonderful. I look forward to what is the next post in this Office Truth series. So what really went behind this, your thought process there?
I think I started this, I think, about some 3, 4 years ago. And, it so happened that I came home from the office one day and there's something that happened in the office. And there's something that I observed and something that happened to me. And I wrote it down. And I just felt that if this is something which is so personal, is it something that I can post as well? And so I came out with this thing called Office Truths. And of course, it made sense to me. And I didn't realize that whatever that I wrote made a sense, made some sense to a lot of other people as well. And some of this is quite revealing in its nature, but some of them are also something that people look forward to, because what does a person rely on? And this is what I want to share with all our listeners today, there will always be a time when the yellow river will turn clear and the wheels of fortune will turn in your favor. So stay positive.
Thank you so much, sir, for this line. So that I, sir, your final any one line of advice to youngsters stay positive as we wrap up this show.
Um, my one line is every one of you, each and every one of you, you're going to be outstandingly successful in your life.
Wow.
Start to believe in it. Start to believe in it. Even a little bit of faith in that, and you will see a massive difference both to yourself and people around you. On that note, let me thank you, Anurag,
Thank you
and
so much, sir.
all everybody who is on the call. Thank you so much. It's been exciting being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.